the hunger to just keep doing more when you wake up, right? The brain just switches. Like whatever you thought was difficult, that suddenly becomes your best case scenario. You understand the value of life and like having the right people around you who are willing to push that extra mile.
Hello everyone, I'm Charul. I'm starting this podcast series called Wonder with Charul. There's no specific agenda here, just conversations with people who have taken interesting 𝐀𝐝𝐤𝐿 paths in life. And for a first episode, we have Aditya Sharma with us, who is the co-founder of the Soul Store. He not only shares my passion for business, but also shares my love for travel and a lot more. So let's get started. Welcome Aditya to the show, and thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you so much for calling me. I'm very excited to do this with you. I'm happy to be a part of your startup journey. I don't prefer to do a lot of these, but I think I'm excited to do it and be here and see what you have in store, because it's so different from the usual ones that I've been a part of. So, and travel is something that is very core to me, which something that I really enjoy outside of work. So I would love to talk about it with you.
Yeah, definitely, Aditya. I mean, the reason I wanted to start this series off with you, because you had that exact match of both the things that I was looking for. You have built an amazing business along with your co-founders, and you are into travel. That's how much I stalked you on Instagram. So anyway, before we get ahead with the podcast, I would request you to just give a quick brief about yourself, about your journey so far, and then we can get head started with the conversation around the podcast. So
right. So we are four of us. We're four co-founders. We started it in 2013. I am an engineer. Took up a finance job after, because I really didn't want to do engineering after and take up a job where I'm sitting in coding. So I met my co-founders there. I remember after a year into the job, we basically were eating sev puri and we discussed this idea. At that point, we started researching on it, and within a few months, we had left our job and started the company. It's been a roller coaster of a ride. I think there have been a lot of points in the journey where we've thought that it's done and we'll have to shut down. But there has been something that has consistently kept us going, and I'm very happy that we have. So the brand started off with just a basic small t-shirt brand which did pop culture merchandise, but has now grown to be much more than that. Since the show is about travel, I think what has kept me sane has been the travel part of it. Every chance that I get to basically explore the country or the city, I've taken that, and there's a lot that I've learned over the last 20-25 years of traveling, and I would love to share that with everyone else.
Wow, amazing. Quite inspiring actually, because people like us in our 20s, we are very confused with respect to, having a stable life or following our heart. And you mentioned that you chose to follow your heart over sev puris. So that's very exciting. But I wanted to know, I think that's a burning question for all of us. That, how do you know that it's time to, explore a particular idea and just get ahead with it and leave everything behind? I mean, leaving a 9-to-5, the stable bit, and just knowing or probably getting the courage to start off. I mean, that's very hard, because all of us have a lot of ideas and probably want to do a lot of things, but then you don't just get there and start doing it. So what, according to you, made you do that?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a very very flowery answer for this. I think at that point, it just stuck with us. At that, we were like that there is no other brand which is doing this. And back in the day when we were thinking of this idea, which is 2012, there was no concept of Netflix and Amazon Prime and things like that. So it was still very early. We used to download torrents and watch Friends online, right? So, but the main idea or the reason behind this was that, hey, we've all read Harry Potter. There is no way for me to get Harry Potter merchandise in India. You would either ask a relative or someone to get it for you, or probably buy a fake from Amazon. So we saw that gap in the industry, but at the same time, it was something that we wanted, right? So that passion just completely sort of went in sync with the demand in the market. It's not that we did some insane market research or went like a full founder's approach. It was something that we just thought we wanted to do, and we just plunged into it.
Okay, you mean the passion intersection along with the demand and overview of it. Mainly it's the passion that drove you.
Correct. We are lucky that the demand matched our passion, but we didn't really do a lot of market research to understand if the market was going to grow, or if we didn't know that Netflix was going to come to India, right? So it was a calling of the gut, and we loved what we were starting. There was also very little barrier to entry in the sense where India is known for exporting good quality apparel to the rest of the world, right? So that was one of the key reasons why we wanted to do it, because I knew that even at our scale we could basically come up with a decent product that consumers would love.
Okay, understood.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you mentioned that you started off with your 4 friends. And I mean, you and your friends started off. And that's a very big question to ask. I mean, once you are up with the idea and the passion, it's very hard to take that call who to start it with, or who do you want to be your company when you're solving something big or small, whatever. And also it gets a little complicated when you're working with friends.
So we actually didn't know each other, more than a year. So we met at that job, right? So before that, there was no context. We did probably have some common friends, which we found out later. But there was a very strong sense of work ethic / friendship that we had built in that 1 year. There was mutual respect, there was trust. And I think more than anything else, right, these couple of core traits are very important to find in a founder. Because, as they say, right, like you would end up spending more time with your founder than your spouse or your family. So it's very important to make sure that you don't get bored of each other, you love spending time with each other, and you are very open to be vulnerable in front of the other person. So when we met and we started working together, we realized that that there is that comfort, there is that trust that the other person has, and vice versa, which really helped us through the tough times, because there'll be enough times in your life or in the company where there will be issues that would be very difficult to solve or to get through. And the only thing that point you have is self-belief and your co-founders, right? So that really worked for us. Again, there is no science behind it. I guess a lot of it is, I guess that's what people call destiny. But choosing your co-founders is, I think, one of the most valuable steps to starting out.
Yeah, I mean, we can't keep overthinking about whether to work with somebody or not, but the core values, the major thing that you mentioned is respect. That mutual respect has to be there for things to work out in the long run, I feel.
Correct. And respect and trust, basically. I think these two things are very crucial, and obviously the hunger to just keep doing more when you wake up, right? So I think, again, we've gotten lucky, and it's been very consistent with all of us. And I think that's one of the major reasons why we've even gotten to this stage.
Understood.
Yeah.
So do you have any good or bad stories working with your friends throughout this journey? Because it's been a long one till now. So if you can recall anything big that made you question, or
a lot of the good stories can't be shared on a public platform, but I think the most obvious one that I remember, right, is when we had to basically we used to keep moving offices and warehouses, because we were really small and we couldn't afford to get a large place. So we would basically go and find, like, one of our first offices was in a slum that was like 150 square feet. And then we would grow very quickly. So in 6 months we had to move out and go to a different place. So we kept doing that every few months, and to pack up and to take the stuff and then do it again. I think at that point, in a way, there was a certain thrill and sort of hard work involved. But the toughest time for all of us, was during COVID. When we had to actually make sure that the firm survives, because you could at that point we felt the burden of 400 people in the company to make sure that we can pay salaries during tough times and all. So I think that's the toughest / the best moment, where the best part was that we came out of it. and we had the support of literally every single team member. The most obvious and the common step that founders take usually is to fire people during tough times. But I think I can take a lot of pride in saying that we did not even let one person go. So that I think is very crucial, and it shows the not just how the others operate, but not even one person basically had the thought of removing the other person or a team member during these times. So I think this core trait of trust, respect for each other and for every other person who works in the firm, I think that's what really keeps us together.
Yeah, and that's when the real test of being a good co-founder would have come in also. I mean, you had to take decisions together, like the opinions of 4 different people coming in together, and sort of, so the values were particularly aligned in the tough times.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, so I wanted to know a bit more about your funding journey. Like, how was it for you guys? And since we see a lot of people right now chasing funds at pre-seed or seed stage and whatever, so were there any lessons learned or surprises on your way through the funding journey? Because as far as I know, you guys were bootstrapped from the starting. So I mean, I wanted to know like your opinion on this as well, that people are chasing funds at pre-seed, seed level. So what are your opinions on that, and how has SoulStore had their funding journey so far?
See, I think there's no right or wrong in chasing funds. I think every business has to start differently. We were lucky that we started, I guess, in 2013. We started off with a very small capital of 5 lakh rupees, and we kept reinvesting the cash that we made in the business. So we were bootstrapped till the first 5 years. And I think one advantage of being bootstrapped was that the business was very tight. There were no loose costs, no loose ends. Every single rupee was, maximized, right? So that's, I think that's one area where, which really helped us learn that in the start, because if we had a lot of money to spare, that would have been we would have not been as tight. Yeah. Right. So I think being bootstrapped really helped us because we got very tight with the costs. Our ops were very nicely managed, and our use of cash. So we had to be, we didn't have a lot of options to make mistakes, because if there's no cash in the bank, you have to still pay salaries and you still have to get your inventory right and things like that, right? Then 5 years later is when we decided to get into the market, because we wanted to expand at a much faster rate. Also wanted to get into retail. So when we started meeting investors, obviously got rejected multiple times over the last few years, like any other founder does. Apparel doesn't have a very, sort of a very good name in the industry, because people stay away from it. There have been tons of brands in the past that have tried to do this, but have not been successful. So it's almost a taboo industry, and people weren't very excited about it. So that when we were meeting investors, there was so much baggage that they already had, that we had to start from negative, instead of starting from a very neutral background. So it was tough, but with every venture funding, I think it kept getting easier in that sense, where we had proven ourselves a little more than the previous time, and also that the model had been tried and tested. So that definitely did help. But my advice to anyone looking for funding is to just basically make sure that that passion has to be there. Don't raise money to get a good valuation or to basically remove cash from the business. I think it has to be purely done with the right intent of growing the business and nothing else. As long as you're on that track, I don't think there should be a problem.
Okay. So did you try to raise fund during those 5 years as well, or was that a choice that you made that you want to first get a stable ground and then probably get investment?
Yes, correct. So we didn't want to raise money for those 5 years. We were growing profitably. The business was making money, and we never had a dearth of cash in that sense, But post 5 years, when we saw, I think when the landscape changes, when you suddenly see a lot of potential happening, Netflix, Amazon Prime coming to India, and you see accelerated growth, and obviously it's a mix of how we are also as founders, right? Where you now feel like the company is at that place where you can actually take what you built and then just scale it up like a template, So that both of those things combined actually made us want to go in the market and look for more funds.
Okay. So you wanted to scale up at the investors' money, but you wanted to make a stable business at your own cost firstly, and then probably.
We want to get it right, make sure that we have the right model for it, and then eventually raise money. Yes.
Understood. So, like, what is your take for the people? Like, currently, we see a lot of people chasing money at the pre-seed or seed stage, like when they don't even have a product market fit. So, do you think that's the right way to go?
And as I said, I don't think there's anything right or wrong. Yeah, to each their own. I think you have to just decide what's good for you. If the idea requires a lot of initial cash, then maybe you need to do this. And if getting some kind of pre-seed also basically some kind of validation that you're on the right track. So I'm a very firm believer in not claiming that a particular method is right. I think there are a lot of different ways to achieve the same thing. You just need to know what's right for you. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, makes sense actually. So what is your take? So we see that today startup industry in India is growing at a very crazy pace, and there are different industries that are coming ahead. So what is the most exciting industry that you see coming ahead, and what excites you potentially for the future of startups of India?
So I think I do feel that it's a great time to start something in India, because we've been hearing that India is going to grow and all of that, the whole story since the day we were born. But at this point, finally, I do feel that the time is right. There are a lot of startups that we see around us who are doing really innovative and creative stuff, and it's one of the best times to be in India. In terms of what I think would really work well, I think one of the biggest examples of what's done or is going to become much bigger is coffee in India, right? Because I think Indian coffee is supposed to be one of the best, and India is also one of the biggest exporters of coffee. But you finally now have a lot of homegrown brands that have picked up, like 𝐀𝐝𝐞, Third Wave, etc. So the reason I'm saying this is because it's been in our minds, and one of the topics that we've been discussing in office very recently, and we're all very bullish on that category, because I am not a coffee person. I don't have coffee, but every single person around me who has really loved and moved from a Starbucks or any other international brand to the Indian brands. So that shows that a product is superior. Once these guys figure out scale, then it's going to be very easy to take it international and then cater to a much larger audience.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, don't you think the coffee thing is also related to Indians investing in experiences? Like, as you mentioned, Blue Tokai or Third Wave, people are willing to go and pay for the 500 rupee coffee now and pay for the ambience. Like, people want to go and sit in a coffee place and sort of. So earlier, when there was cafe coffee days and probably Starbucks was not there in India, so people were hesitant towards spending on experiences, and now mainly the coffee culture is coming up because people are ready to go out and spend on experience as well.
So I think there are two sides to this, right? The coffee culture was already there. I mean, people are still, let's say, having the filter coffee in the south of India, right? So it's not that the culture wasn't there, but yes, the market wasn't there to charge a very big premium on it, because it was always available at a much cheaper price, and it was something you consumed in your house, right? So as a product, coffee was always there, but the reason why there is more money in it now is because, as you said, people are spending on experiences, so you can charge a big markup on it. You can also innovate with like way more flavors than you could in the past. Since the younger audience is now willing to try newer stuff and also pay a premium to sit at the coffee shop and experience the brand along with the coffee. So that's really helped, and which is exactly why so many of these guys have come up in the last 10 years.
Yeah. And maybe that's an inference for us to work in the experience industry in general, because I think the coming generation or generation that I belong to or people ahead of me belong to, they are not like me. They do spend on commodities, but they are more willing to spend on experiences than commodities now, at least.
Agreed. People have started valuing that, right? Because the generation before us didn't have a lot of access to materialistic things, and it was a very hard life, right? Let's say that my grandfather, for example, moved from his hometown to Bombay. His life was very tough, but luckily I was given I never had to worry for food and shelter. So once all of us or the generation has enough basic needs fulfilled, is when you realize that you need to go beyond that, right? And you start looking for experiences, which is what is happening with, I think, this generation. So you're very right. People are going to spend more. There is a lot of scope for coming up with things here, and I'm very sure that there are in no time we're going to see a lot of startups around this come up.
Yeah. So sneak peek, I am also trying to build something in the experience domain only. So that's
very cool. That's very cool. Yeah.
Okay, so coming to the fun part, travel. So as you mentioned, travel kept you sane throughout your journey. So I mean, how has travel impacted you? So as I mentioned that, I feel that is what I have experienced through my journey, that exploration and curiosity has this very cool overlap. And a founder's mindset and a traveler's mindset somehow overlaps in some domains, being okay with newness and kind of being okay with being lost sometimes. So what is your take on that, and how has travel helped you, and how has it changed your perspective on life or business in general?
So I think one of the most obvious things about travel is that you can't really control nature and the surroundings, right? So I had taken a trip to Ladakh, and we were about 6-7 of us, and one of my friends got very ill and he had to be hospitalized, and his oxygen basically fell. And in those few days, right, you realize that one, it's very important to find the right people to be around you. You also realize that there are going to be a lot of scenarios in which you would have done everything right, but life would still not work your way, right? So during those hard problems and hardships you realize how you also behave as a human being, like how your body copes with that, how your mind reacts to it, how whether you panic or how you deal with the situation, and also that you realize the importance of life and people around you. So I think for me, in that one trip, I got a lot of those lessons, and you come back a more humble person. You realize that you're not that important in the world, but at the same time, it's very crucial to stay strong-headed in a very difficult situation. So I've had a lot of stories like this, which we don't have time to share, but every time I've traveled, I think I've picked up something very, very unique from a person who I never thought I would anyways, on a normal day speak to in Bombay, right? So for me, that's the best part about travel, where I hear people's stories. I met a guy in one of my Bali trips and he was 23 and I was 26, 27. He was from Austria, and I asked him what he wanted to become, and he told me he wanted to become a fisherman. And at that point I was like, wow, this guy, like, I would never think of someone wanted to do this in India, right? So these kind of things, and then what happened after the journey he shared, what he had in mind, just a lot that makes us think that when we start here, our ideologies are just like, hey, let's become an engineer or a doctor or whatever, and then just go on with life. So these small things, I think, I really value.
Yeah, I mean, you gain perspective when you're travel makes you open to new stuff. I mean, you don't have those boundaries that you have in your normal life.
Yeah.
That gives you a lot of perspective. I mean, when I tell people that travel isn't just an investment of leisure, to me, it's more like a learning. I consider that as my learning point. When I travel, probably solo or anyway, I get to experience something in every trip that is so new, and it is absolutely stunning that what we see, as you said, you can't control stuff, and you get to see different sides of life in general in those couple of days, and that gains you a lot of perspective that we don't usually get in the four walls that you are in while you're running a business or doing a job or whatever. So that's absolutely true. So has it impacted your business mindset in any way? Like, has it added, or any specific trip that added on to your decision-making skills while you were probably in your workspace or something like that?
Yeah, so one of the other trips where we had a similar situation was me and my co-founders had gone for a hike, and unfortunately, the weather became really bad. It was in Maharashtra, and it was very windy, very rainy, and we had a mishap. And one of the guys who was with us, he fell from the cliff and went into and hurt himself. So at that point, like everyone got together, removed him from there, but he couldn't walk, and unfortunately, most of the lessons are learned during hardships, which is why my stories are getting so dark and emo. But at that point, we removed him from there and we had to get him down, even though we were struggling to get ourselves down, right? So it's insane how the brain just switches. Like whatever you thought was difficult, that suddenly becomes your best case scenario. And I think, so I remember we basically found like two bamboos, removed all of our wind cheaters, tied them to the two bamboos, made a stretcher, put him on there, and then 7-8 of us basically just like dragged him, taking turns on our shoulders. So these kind of situations teach you that one, every time your brain tells you that you can't go more, it's lying to you, right? There is no concept of, hey, I can't push further. And that at that point, all of us wanted to do was get back safely, and nothing more than that. Like no one was complaining about pain and etc., right? So it was a big lesson for us. Again, I think you understand the value of life and like having the right people around you who are willing to push that extra mile, risk their own lives, and take someone on their shoulders, right? Because people could have been like, no, I don't care, I'm gonna leave by myself, I don't want to take the risk of injuring myself. No one said that. So it for me, it taught me two things. One, the importance of again having the right people, and second, that the brain can always push and do more. There is no limit.
Yeah, I mean, travel gives you that option that you have to do. You can't, if you have to come out of a place, you have to do it, and you are facing that upfront. So there's no bahana that you can make that, I can't do this or whatever. So
Agree.
yeah, that has happened with me also, like a couple of times when there's a difficult thing which you never thought that, I can do this, and then you had to do it because you never had a choice. So yeah, definitely that's a good learning. That might inspire a lot of people who are scared to go out and travel, because I think still people are sort of in that place, coming out of that comfortable travel scenario and going for hikes or adventures for that matter. So yeah. And lastly, I would want to conclude with a last question. That would be, what is your advice for people like me and people like you couple of years back who wanted to sort of follow their heart and do things that they like to do, and something that you want them to sort of follow throughout, and that's going to be with them throughout this journey?
That's a lot of questions in one, actually. Which one do you want the answer to?
You can break it even, but we can start off with advice for 20 years old.
Yeah, I feel very old when you ask me like for advice. But it's very simple, honestly. Don't complicate life. Just do what you feel is something which is very core to you, something that really means something to you. Don't try and follow something that's cool, because there are trends and people really want to join the bandwagon. Maybe it's cool to be a founder now. Maybe it's cool to raise money. But all of these are fads, and if you try and do something that you're not, you won't be able to sustain it. So I think just stick to your core, maybe, and be patient. Maybe the time is not right for you. Maybe it'll come in like a few years, but be patient. I think things will fall in place as long as you're very strong-willed and hardworking.
Definitely. Cool. Then thank you, Aditya. Thank you for this whole thing. And
For having me.
yeah, thank you for making this happen, actually, because this is the first one and people don't usually trust people's guts again. So thank you so much. And this is going to be the start of it, and we'll be learning and growing together. I mean, I might not be perfect for the starters, but then I think this is the place where I want to grow with the people who want to believe in this journey together.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the whole point.
Yeah, so nice talking to you, and we are 10 minutes ahead of our
Yeah.
time.
Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, wrapping up this awesome conversation with Aditya about the incredible journey of the Soul Store. We discussed some super cool stuff like solving a problem you totally care about can lead you to an awesome business idea, and how trust, respect, and open communication are the key to building your dream team. We talked about starting lean to avoid mistakes and then strategically using funding to grow even bigger. We also unpacked the connection between the trendy coffee scene and the whole experience industry thing happening in India. Aditya also shared some travel stories and discussed how travel broadens your horizons, helps us understand ourselves better, and even breaks down some of those mental walls. Remember, as he says, do something that you're really passionate about, something that's core to you, and that's gonna stay with me for life. And hey, that's what this is about, right? Sharing my passion while we all learn and grow together. Feeling inspired to explore your own passions? Then follow us for some inspiring content. Find us on Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, and definitely check out our website. And I love to know your thoughts and suggestions in the comments below. And one last thing, it's never too late to do something you love. Keep wondering and wandering.